This is an interesting feast because it just really tugs on the heart and allows us even briefly to just sort of get swallowed into the grief that certainly Our Lady experienced in her mission. But what it becomes is really a conversation about the value of suffering from God's perspective, because it was revealed most intensely in the person of Jesus Christ, which we celebrated yesterday at the exaltation of the cross, but then in the heart of Our Lady, who is participating in all of this. It's not her body that's nailed to the cross, but it is her entire life, right? And so how are we to understand that? And the Word of God has this consistent pattern between both the readings that's easy to miss but captures the response. So in Hebrews it says, "Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered." Okay, so the suffering is now on the stage. "And when he was made perfect," so there's a perfecting quality to suffering, "he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him." So if you think about that, because Jesus says yes to the Father, to take on flesh, to live in the human exile, to be subject to all the things that we are subject to become ridiculed, to stick his neck out there preaching a gospel that's going to get him killed, and then suffering with every drop of blood all the way up to Calvary, and then on Calvary, the whole horrific event that was commemorated yesterday. Because of that, he became the source of eternal salvation, which is interesting language. When I think of source, I think of like font. Well, what is the font from which salvation flows? That's the sacramental life. The sacraments by which we find our redemption are possible because that man bled out to death. Because of what he suffered in his flesh, that we have direct connection and participation in through every sacrament in which we engage. And because we're here at Mass, particularly the sacrament of the Eucharist. But then we go on to Our Lady in this prophecy of Simeon. He says to her, "And you yourself a sword will pierce." Why? "So that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed." Because of Mary's yes, because she allowed herself to be totally consumed into the passion of her Son, our hearts are exposed before us in the flesh of her own child, so that I begin to see myself clearly, that those little sins that I sort of excuse, or even the big ones that I'm too afraid to look at, they have consequences. But revealed so that I might be saved. And so when she's standing at the foot of the cross, just totally dying inside, when the world is ripping her Son out of her grasp, her Son looks at her and says, "Woman, behold your Son," meaning, instead of me, will you take the rest of the world, including those who were holding the nails an hour ago, will you take them as your children? And she said, yes. And she lives that yes even now. All the times that she's appeared, you think of Lourdes, you think of Fatima, she is fighting for a people who are responsible for her Son's death because she never stopped taking it all into her heart. What does that mean for us? It means that suffering has a redemptive quality to it. It's not just the suffering of Christ. It's not just the suffering of Our Lady. It's all suffering when it's suffered in union with the Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ. It has a redemptive quality. St. Thomas Aquinas will speak to this in his own reflections on the Beatitude, "Blessed are those who mourn." And mourning isn't just the grief of the loss of a loved one, although he says it includes that. It's the redemptive kind of mourning, like when someone breaks down in tears in the sacrament of confession because they're overwhelmed by the grief caused by their own sinfulness. Blessed are they. Blessed are they who look out into the world that is in its wretchedness, that is capable of incredible evil, that has such little love for God. But they take that suffering into themselves, and rather than becoming bitter and resentful by it, place it into the Sacred Heart of Jesus and ask for more mercy and more grace. And because of that suffering, because of your participation in that mystery, the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed, and salvation itself spreads out into the world. This is probably most manifest in the martyrs in their own life, and how because of the blood of the martyrs, the church continues to grow, which is another way of saying salvation is spreading. So as we gather to celebrate or enter into really the mystery of Our Lady's suffering, who is in herself participating in the suffering of her Son that was commemorated yesterday, it's really an opportunity for us to pause and acknowledge that we have a part to play in all of this. And we can play it if we, like her, say yes and take it into ourselves and allow our response to yield love back in its place.